when the your high kids and they're like, yeah, we want to go live, but there was no waiver form. So, but you guys are all 18 and above, right? All right. None of you guys are super geniuses that are like 12. Yeah. Okay. So if you want to brag about it, we are now live on Channel 23 and our Northern Marianas Commonwealth Legislature Facebook page. Okay. So these are the cameras. Say hi. Mom and dad. Okay. Not just mom. Okay. All right. So I'd like to introduce the members that are present here today. I am the Speaker of the House, Edmund Villagomez. To my left, right here is Representative Blas Jonathan, or we call him BJ Atao. To his left is our floor leader, Representative Marissa Flores. To her left is the chairman of education, so I expect you to direct all the questions to him. Representative Roman Beneventi. To his left is our chairman of what we call the Judicial and Governmental Operations Committee, JGO, Representative Joel Camacho. And to his left, again, when you talk about current issues, one of the most popular or problematic issue we have in the CNMI is our utilities, right? How's your data connection to when you're on the phone? Is it on a scale of 1 to 10? 6. Wow. 5, 6, 5, 6. Okay. This is Representative Vincent S. Aldon. He is the chairman of Public Utilities, Transportation, and Communication. So I'm sure there's a lot of issues there too, right? Right on. Yeah. So he's working hard to bring down the gas prices and to bring down the power. And he has a lot of ideas. No, I'm just kidding. So good morning, and it is an honor and a pleasure to have you all here. Can anybody tell me what do you know about the legislature so far?
Come to you with our problems.
Yes, yes, and we appreciate it. Anybody else? Wow, when we're not here, we can hear all the talks on the mic, and now that you're here, it's like,
Well, I have something.
Yes.
Well, I feel like at its simplest form, ever since we were in elementary school, they taught us that the legislator is in charge of like making the laws and truly advocating for the needs of the community.
yes, yes. Thank you very much. That's very nice of you. But it is very true. In the legislature, this is where the law making process starts. One thing that separates the House from the Senate is when it comes to money and appropriations, or where we're going to program the money to. It has to start here in the House. In the Senate, their power is the confirmation. So you see, like the DPS commissioner, the Secretary of Public Works, etc. The governor nominates. They go through the hearing process in the Senate, then the Senate confirms. We have no say in that. So that's the big difference. How many of you know how many members there are in the House? Count the chairs, folks. Count the chairs. I'm just kidding. Okay, I can see her. She's like 5 plus 2 divided by 4. All right, we have 20 members in the House. Okay, we are at our constitutional max. In your class, do you guys discuss the reduction of the legislature? Not often. Okay, so that's one of the issues too that's coming up. Before my time, there were 18 members. Okay, And we had a member in the House and in the Senate that pushed to reduce the size of the legislature. That backfired. It went to court. The court did their research and came out with a decision that we were still underrepresented, and two more seats were added. Okay. So prior to that, Saipan had 4 precincts, but after that, there's 5 precincts. Okay. So I'll go ahead and I'll talk about the precincts starting from the south. We have Precinct 1, which Representative Vincent S. Aldon is from, and Representative Roman Beneventi. Precinct 1 is probably the largest precinct with the highest number of voters. Okay, Precinct 1 consists of the villages of Kobler, Dandan, the south side, San Antonio, Finasisu, Aslitu, Asperdido, etc. How many of you guys are from that south side area? They're your constituents, folks. Yeah. So in Precinct 1, there are 6 seats. I introduced already 2 members. And then we have Representative Roy Adda. We have Representative Joseph Flores. Who else am I missing? Oh, yeah, Representative, our Vice Speaker, yeah, Diego Vincent Fejeran Camacho. And, oh, yes, and one of our new members, too, Representative Raymond Uzoa Palacios from Precinct 1. So 6 seats there. When you move forward or north, like in the Susupi, Chalancanoa area, and parts of Finasisu too as well, that's Precinct 2. There are 2 seats. None of the members are here, but we have Representative Daniel Aquino Jr. and Representative John Paul Sablan. Precinct 2, that consists of, like I mentioned, Chalancanoa, Susupi, parts of Asperdido, and parts of Finasisu. How many of you are from those villages? 1, 2, 3. All right, 4. There you go. All right. Then we move further north, and then we have Precinct 3, which is the precinct that I am from, and Representative Attao and our floor leader is from. It's a pretty big precinct. The recent census has shown that it's the most populated precinct. We have 6 seats as well. So you have us 3. You have Representative Ralph Yumo, Representative Danita Yangtamai, and Representative Elias Rangamar, or Coach. How many of you guys participate in sports? Right on. So you've heard of Representative Rangamar? Okay. Was he ever your coach? Yes. All right. All right. And what sports? Track. All right. There you go. Yeah. So that's Precinct 3. And then you move further north in Precinct 4. That's Representative Joel Camacho's precinct. That consists of this side of Capitol Hill, parts of Asteo, and the north, including the Northern Islands. So Marpi, Tanapac, San Roque, Atuga, and the Northern Islands. There are 2 representatives, again, Representative Joel Camacho and Representative Malcolm Omar, who can't be with us this morning. Then we move to the east side, which is Precinct 5, and that's the newest precinct in the legislature. We have Representative Angelo Camacho and Representative Thomas John, or TJ Manglonia. And then to our sister islands to the south, we have Precinct 6, which is Representative Patrick San Nicolas, that's Tinian and Agigan. And then the southernmost island of the Commonwealth is Rhoda, where we have Representative Julie Ogo. Okay. Any questions so far? Yes. Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, okay. How many of you guys are from Precinct 3? That's Garapan, Puerto Rico, Chinatown, Chalanquiza, that side of Capitol Hill. All right. Precinct 1 is still the dominant precinct. How about Precinct 4? This side of Capitol Hill, Tanapec. Nobody. Joel, you got to campaign more than start smart, okay, Joel? Yeah. How about Precinct 5? That's San Vicente, Asterlai, Canatabla, Cagman. All right, Papagu. All right. All right. How about Rhoda? Anybody from Rhoda? All right. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. How about Tinian? Anybody from Tinian? There we go. There we go. All right. All right. Okay. So those are the representatives. So in the House, it's set up just like in the U.S. Congress. You know, there's 20 members based on the size and the the population too of the precinct. So that's why you see that precinct one has six, precinct two has two, pretty much same as U.S. Congress on the House level. On the Senate, any idea how many members we have up there? Nope. Close. Going once, going twice. Anybody want to bust out their calculator and? Okay, I'll save you guys the battery power and the time. We have 9 members there in the Senate. Okay, we have 3 from Saipan and the Northern Islands, 3 from Tinian, and 3 from Rhoda. So that's where it's all balanced. And my colleagues can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, if we can populate the Northern Islands by at least 1,000 residents and voters, that's when another seat can actually open in the House and another 3 seats in the Senate. So how many of you guys want to move to the Northern Islands? Not just nobody, just one back there. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's the setup of the legislature. In the House, we have 4 officers, of course. The Speaker, that's myself, and I mentioned our floor leader, and we have our Vice Speaker, and we have who we refer to as the leader. As um, we try not to be divisive here, but of course, people run in parties, people run in groups, and the groups with the most number that comes in, of course, is what they call the majority, and the group with the least numbers, they're called the minority. So the leader is pretty much he leads the minority group. The speaker leads everybody. So the role of the speaker is he or she manages the meetings. He pretty much can also manage the operations of the House. So he or she calls the meetings, um, tries to be neutral. We cannot really debate too much. Every time, if I need to debate my colleagues, I would have to step down, and the vice speaker will sit as the acting speaker. The floor leader, a very powerful position. He or she makes the motions. Okay, so if I would like to see something happen in the session, I would recognize her, and she makes the motion. But her position is pretty powerful too. So if she's not having a good day, she could tell me like, "Nope, not today, Mr. Speaker." Yeah, yeah, yeah. She always has a good day. Thank God. Yeah, but she also has the authority. Like we have different committees, and if the committee is taking too long on a certain legislation that's really necessary, she could pull those. Bills out of committee and put it on calendar for action. That's a pretty powerful um, power to or authority to have in the legislature. Of course, we try to work together as a team, try to get a consensus. Um, and then the vice speaker, of course, is like anything else. The vice president, the lieutenant governor. If the governor or like myself, the speaker, is off island or unable to carry out my duties because, say I get sick or whatnot, then he steps up as the acting speaker. Um, yeah, so there we go. Any questions so far? Yes, sir.
I have a first question here.
Yes.
And so, I know the economy right now is facing a lot of problems.
Mhm.
The biggest one I want to ask, and like that's the one that's like the CNMI's economy depends on the most, and that's tourism.
Yes, yes.
I'm curious to know if there's any solutions or innovations brought up that will help that that were discussed here or somewhere else that will help the CNMI diversify beyond tourism.
Beyond
So that
tourism.
way, it maybe can find ways to sustain itself without relying heavily on
On
tourism.
tourism, yes. On our end, uh, as policymakers, I've gone on a few trips with the governor to meet with different investors in different types of industries. Uh, we've met with folks from Taiwan that manufacture what they call semiconductors, you know, the chips that are in your cell phones, in your computers, and things like that. We've discussed the potential for a setup like that. Of course, on the tourism area, we are trying to diversify the different types of tourism, okay? There's educational tourism. There are people that come here for work. And then, of course, there are those that come here for rest and recreation, you know, the typical visitors itinerary. Come here, enjoy the beach, enjoy the sand, enjoy the sights, uh, enjoy the accommodations that we are slowly losing, but we're trying to protect. But tourism will always be our main thing because people travel for different reasons. But yes, we also amended the law to further redefine the Commonwealth Development Authority. Now it's called the Commonwealth Economic Development Authority, and they are like the MVA, the Marianas Visitors Authority for investments. Okay, are you guys familiar with the Marianas Visitors Authority? Yes. How many of you went to the Taste of the Marianas? All right. Okay, so MVA is the marketing arm for tourism for the CNMI. So, like, for example, the Taste of the Marianas was an idea that came up 26 years ago um, to help attract tourists over for signature events. Of course, that time the Japanese market was very strong. So CEDA, or formerly CDA, the Commonwealth Economic Development Authority, they are tasked now to be the marketing arm to bring investment here. We are looking at different avenues for business. We just recently started discussing the free trade zone where folks can set up business in certain areas where certain taxes do not apply. But that also depends on what kind of industry. Of course, if you've been reading the news, how many of you guys have read the news of the governor's veto of the internet gaming for Virginia? This was last week. Yeah. So part of the investment there, or the idea behind that local bill, is the investment in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Okay. How many of you guys have invested in Bitcoin or are familiar with Bitcoin? Oh, you've invested too? Can we be friends? Maybe we can call you in for the meeting. But yeah, so those are the different things we are looking at. Of course, as much as you can do, just like any business, you can put out an advertisement, you can offer deals, but if they're not coming, then yes. Oh, is that? Okay. So, but you guys can hear me, right?
Oh,
Yes.
So yeah, those are the different industries. Of course, one of the headlines that you always read on the news, right, is you see that White Castle in the middle of Jarapan. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. I say we should start like a airsoft tournament, right, and use that building, right? Yeah, but as you can see, one of the new industries we have is the casino industry, and of course that's caught up in a lot of legal battles right now. Um, so they're trying to sort that out. There's a new investment group that um, has been allowed to go ahead and purchase the assets, which I think includes also the license, right? Yeah, and it's a steal of a deal. I think you're looking about 12 to 14 million dollars when that investment is close to $500 million already. But that's how low it's that's how low the value has dropped. Um, because you guys are old enough, and I don't try to talk about this in front of the. We had elementary kids here a week or two ago. Of course, the cannabis industry. Um, when it was legalized, again, the target was for the tourists, but then it's also for the locals as well. Although marijuana is legal, the penalties now are much more strict. Okay, back then when it was illegal and you get caught, it's almost like a slap on the wrist, depending on the activity you're doing with the marijuana, with cannabis. now it's like if you don't have a license to or a permit to even start a plantation, it's going to be serious. If you start selling without the proper business documents, it's also it's worse. And some people also get the impression that just because it's legal, you can smoke anywhere. But actually, even in smoking in public areas in front of children is actually it's pretty bad. You'll get penalized for that. So those are some of the industries where we're looking at. Of course, uh, we're going to need to bring people in. And how do people come to our islands? Planes, right? Okay. So, how many of you have read the newspaper this morning? Okay, current issues, guys. Yeah, I could have sworn I heard somebody in there. They're like, "Hey, did you guys read the front page?" And I'm like, "Oh, this is a good start to the meeting." But so one of the headlines is no more direct flights from Hong Kong. Okay, so some of the hotel companies here and the tour agents have taken it upon themselves to charter flights over, and one of those airlines was from Hong Kong. And so what they do is when they charter the flight, the tour agents, they prepay for all the seats, and then the tourists that are going to be coming in, they have to apply for from Hong Kong, they have to apply for the permit, what they call the EVS tap, and usually the turnaround rate is pretty quick. So say you're a tourist from Hong Kong interested to come to the CNMI. You apply for the permit. It usually takes hours before they tell you you've been approved or denied. Uh, I think the longest they put in the requirement is I think 5 days for the turnaround. But in the last month, there was no action. No action. Uh, a lot of it too has to do with our President Donald Trump putting out all these executive orders to tighten this, to cut this, and to cut that. And some of these federal agencies are not sure if it applies to them or how to apply that executive order. So we wrote a letter to the governor to have him look into the issue, because before those executive orders came out with that airline from Hong Kong, the flights were coming in. The flights were getting full. It's to the point where the executives were looking at adding another 2 planes to bring over. So that was very promising. But with I'm not sure what division or agency is tasked with the EVS tap. They're just sitting on it, okay? Because they're not too sure about how to apply those executive orders. So they're not approving, they're not denying, and because of that, the travel agents have lost out money. The travelers are like, are we being scammed here? Are we being screwed here? So they pretty much got turned off. So yeah, that's one of the issues we're also facing. One of our strongest markets back in the day when I was also sitting in the same classroom that you guys are, was the Japanese market. But as you all know, the yen is really weak. So good for us, right? How many of you guys have taken advantage of the Japan trip deals that are out there, the $300 round trips? Yeah, there you go, right? $300. It's still a lot of money, but that's a deal for a round trip ticket. It's cheaper to go to Japan round trip than it is to go to Guam. But $300 converted to the yen for a Japanese traveler, that's a lot of money. So for those of you that have been to Japan in the recent years, things are a lot cheaper than they were when the yen was stronger. So with Japan, the government is encouraging more inter-travel, So the last time I was in Japan too, there were a lot of, I don't know if you want to call them Japanese tourists because they're from Japan, but from different cities, different prefectures, traveling to the different areas in Japan. But little by little, they're making some way around the world. But without those travelers coming in, I mean, it really hurts our economy. Okay. Again, current issues. You read the newspapers. How many of you have read the news about Kensington possibly, or they're really going to do it, right? Suspend their services in June. Okay. Yep. Yep. They're going to suspend their services in June. Kensington is run by Elon. How many of you have heard of PIC? Okay, yeah, PIC. Have you seen the news about how they're gonna lay off about 100 employees? Yeah, yeah. So, and then how about COP? Any news on COP? What they're doing for cost cutting? Probably cutting hours, right? Yeah. So again, we need to bring the numbers in. So, like I said, we wrote a letter to the governor to look into the EVS STAP issue, and hopefully, we can gain the trust of those travelers from Hong Kong. We have what they call the Annex 6 resolution, which is under the committee led by Representative B.J. Atto, the Federal and Foreign Affairs. They're looking into that to remove the cap of travelers from China, right? And again, this is not so much about being pro-China or anti-China. This is more about bringing numbers here, okay? How many of you wish like they open more fast food chains here, right? How many of you guys want to see like a Trader Joe's or the one of the favorite local stores when they go to Guam, Ross? I'm pretty sure they have looked this way, but again, without the numbers, without the numbers coming in and the business activity that results from those numbers, of course, if you're going to open a business, you're going to study the demographics, right? And if your target is adults with this age or and visitors from Japan and all that, but they're not coming in, of course you're gonna think twice before opening a business. And an example too of the the need to have visitors. I was talking to one of my colleagues from the Senate last week, and he was at PIC for a party. It was his cousin's Holy Communion party, right? So, you know, hotel packages, they have the deal. You get a brunch, you get to swim for free. Some of them will throw in a room, but that's a package deal of its own. So they went ahead, they had the brunch party, and then when the kids were going to go swim, this was at PIC, and I don't know if this is based on his observation. For the most part of the day, it was just the lazy riverside that was open, and the main pool was closed. You know where the pirate ship is and the slides. And then at around 4 o'clock, 4:30, they shut down the lazy riverside and tell everybody to move to the pool side, the main pool area. So it has gotten that bad where they're trying to conserve the power and the water. But can you imagine as a tourist, you come to a hotel and you want to enjoy the water park, and they're like, okay, you cannot swim here for a few hours, and then after that they tell you to switch to the other pool. But good question, sir. Any other questions? Sorry, I rambled on there for a long time. Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
So hi there and good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to bring up a topic that was regularly discussed within our classroom.
Mhm.
In 1 week, we were decided to do investigative reports based on a topic of our choice. This included going out and really seeking out issues that might not be brought in within the local news.
Mhm.
And one topic that was very interesting was the obvious prostitution rings and other things going on within the cinema. I know that's a rising issue.
Yep.
But if we are to discuss drugs and other things like abuse and drunk driving in an
Yes.
open area,
Yes.
I know that it may be damaging to the cinema's appearance,
Mhm.
but I'm sure that the people would appreciate some sort of comfort or possible a direct approach to this issue. So I just wanted to know your thoughts on that, maybe expand more.
Yes.
And of course, this is not a criticism. This is just stating the obvious from an assignment we were given one
Yeah,
week.
no, no, and
Thank
we
you, sir.
appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Oh, no worries.
And I don't want to hog the mic too much, but colleagues, any of you wanna chime in on that? This is regarding the crimes, the prostitution, the drugs, and what is the CNMI trying to do to to tackle that issue? So I'll recognize Representative Attal.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you for that question. But before we get to your question, can I just add on to the previous question? Uh, so the different industries. So the legislations that we've worked on is to entice businesses here with the tariffs, right? The hold on tariffs that President Trump has signed off on executive orders. It's actually beneficial to us. You guys aren't old enough to remember the garment industry, which is a very negative industry that put a black eye to the cinema. But at the end of the day, it really brought economic activity to the cinema. The garment industry brought in the tourists because the seats for those flights were so much cheaper. So if we can take advantage with a lot of these buildings that are underutilized right now, even in the heart of Western Garapan would be a perfect location. Let's say that Samsung or Apple decides to come here and start putting the phones together. We can get it cheaper on the local level. At the same time, we become an exporter to those products, and it's still made in the USA. And that's one of the biggest negative impacts, as your instructor would tell you, with the garment industry. They didn't like the fact that we made products and put made in the USA. The main products that were actually produced during the garment industry, you guys heard of Ralph Lauren, right? Tommy Hilfiger, Liz Claiborne, and those guys. They were actually centralized in the cinema before you guys were born. So all the executives of those companies were based out of the cinema. They took advantage of our tax bracket. Then at the same time, they would export. But the you guys ever heard of the World Trade Organization? WTO. So WTO met back in Washington in 1998, and one of the main push was to open up the free trade so that China and South America can get into the textile industry. And when they did, it really hurt us. We lost the advantage of producing on U.S. soil and providing to the market. If you go back and do some research on just those clothing lines, for example, you're going to see the drop in price between 1990 to 2005. You're going to see that the price for like a Tommy shirt was $50. After that agreement happened, it dropped down to like 15 $10 $15, and you would find them like at the Ross what do you call those, the racks, right? You'd find them in the racks because they were overproducing. Well, when we were making it, there's a cap for South America and China to do that. So the intent with those legislations that we're working on is to entice these businesses and investors, even in the smaller scales, as putting a cell phone together or hard drives or stuff like that, so that we can begin to export. And in turn, that would actually assist our tourism industry, because they would bring these products in faster. Maybe call it raw products, package it here in the cinema, send it out. It would draw the seats. We would actually get more planes, and that's what we've been trying to do. Hopefully, within this year, we can get all the phases of the different types of legislation that's needed, so we can get those businesses kind of rolling. That's why when we met with MVA and CEDA and even DPL, we were asking them that when they do any tour packages that involves MVA in visiting these countries that can produce these kinds of stuff, to take advantage of the tariffs that the executive orders are implementing by President Trump, so that we can bring those guys here, have CEDA on the same trip, have DP on the same trip, so we can actually promote ourselves. Even Rev and Tax, for that matter, we can include them in that trip, so that we can talk about our tax brackets here. We have the biggest advantage when it comes to taxes in the whole nation, including the territories. And back to your question, what have we been doing on with public safety? I guess is what at the end of the day, right?
Oh yeah, that's just what I'm curious about. It's not much of the entirety of public safety, but I I would like to appreciate our approach to steadily addressing DUIs. I think that's very impressive, the level we're going to.
Mhm.
And if we can do that, I'm curious on whether or not we'll be providing something as simple as informational pamphlets or something to address the issue. Like it's just very in our face every time we go to Garapan, to the point where if it wasn't a matter of the shyness of our students, I felt like it would be easy for us to take photos. This is very obvious to our tourism,
Mhm.
very obvious to our fellow citizens, and there are there's thousands of young people viewing these very obvious deterrents to our public safety. So I just wanted to know, perhaps maybe, uh, I really don't know, because to be honest with you, I'm not in the seat where you're at. It's a very delicate process in addressing this issue because, as I said, we're already at a point where numbers are steadily decreasing. And to go out and just blatantly express that we want to end something that is maybe not on the highest priority right now can have a lot of different effects on our economy. And we've even brought up alternative means, like as society progresses and norms change, even things as legal prostitution within other foreign agencies become something that's very apparent to us. And I'm not trying to say that like I'm just happy. I just, I'm trying to inquire the same way we were about the economy.
Sure, sure.
Wonderful.
And one of the things in regards to DPS and their promotions within the CNMI, right? Have you guys ever heard of the DARE program? You've heard of the DARE program, right? The DARE program doesn't exist anymore. But what, 15, 20 years ago, it was one of the biggest programs that we had in the CNMI that involved the youth of the CNMI to be part of the DARE program for various types of promotions. And I understand that the DARE program is more tailored to like drunk driving and all that kind of stuff. But it was if we would get back into those types of programs, it would alleviate a lot of the cost from the central government, and so that we can utilize a lot of the programs that are external, that are in the nation on the national level, that we kind of neglected. We kind of took advantage of it because it brought a lot of money into the CNMI, and we kind of lost touch with that because it wasn't passed on to the next group of people. It was the same people that were holding on to it, the same group of youth members that were a part of it, and then after that there was no like public education or further education in regards to that program. So it kind of dipped down. It was more about, let's get more money to do a portion of this program, but utilize it for manpower, for example, right? Rather than actually utilizing the funds to expand the program in itself. It's more to hire more people. So I think that's one of our failures as a government, is to utilize the funds that we get, or programs that we get from the external side, to expand and subsidize our local program, our local funding, so we can utilize the local funding for local programs or local assistance, i.e., DUIs, fines, for all these other stuff. But also, we got to remember that during this period, well, we're getting a lot of money from the external side. We also had a booming industry here. Call it tourism, call it exportation, but it was here. So we always had multiple budgets within the fiscal year. Right now, we're stuck with one budget. It's what we collect, or what we anticipate to collect, that we would appropriate. Prior to the garment industry closing, or even the tourism industry uh, started to drop back in '97. You guys heard of the Asian economic crisis? So that started the trend with Japan, and then the SARS. Were you guys old enough to remember SARS? This was back in the mid 2000s.
That was the COVID.
That was the first COVID, really the first COVID that happened. But we weren't getting a big market from China at that time, right? So it didn't spread widely or as quickly as COVID, because of where the flights were coming in from our end. We were getting, I think we had like three U.S. flagships. We had Delta Airlines, we had Continental at the time, and what was the third one? Northwest Airlines. So you guys, if you know enough to remember Northwest Northwest was Delta, is what
Yeah.
Delta Airlines is now.
Yeah.
Then we actually had direct flights with Korean Airlines. We had Japan Airlines. At certain times, Pan American Airlines would land in the cinema, and those were the flagship planes. So a simple answer to your question is we should go back to the basics of the fundamentals of a lot of these programs that are external, that are being brought in for public safety and promotional stuff, so that we can maximize uh, our ability to provide to DPS itself, to give them manpower while they can utilize these funds to actually promote safety and deterrence, right? Without really touching the economic activities that potentially would come from these types of unwanted programs or activities in the cinema.
Thank you for that, Representative Attal. And I just want to say, before I hand the mic over to our floor leader, I appreciate how you mentioned you guys go out and want to take pictures and all that. I think years ago, and I think it might have been a current issues class, there were some students that took it upon themselves to look into the prostitution issue. And they had a camera, and I think they went as far as going to the ATM machine. And then I think one of the ladies noticed a blinking light, and it was just, that's it. But I don't know. I think at one point it was even uploaded on YouTube. So it was NMC students years ago in our current issues class that tried to, do their own kind of undercover research. Floor leader.
Thank you. And thank you for that question. And, Rep. Attal has a lot of institutional knowledge. He is like a walking history book in here. So, we thank him for, giving you guys that history, because that's important. My approach is different. My answer is a little different, because I believe that program could have been sustainable, but I also believe that it's leadership. The people that are in there conducting these programs, that are applying for the grants, because the DARE program was a grant program, which is this external funds that Rep. Attal talks about. We are provided a lot of grant support through our covenant, right? And if the leadership does not enforce or lead, right, you have things that either just die out or fail. And over the years, the needs have changed, right? When Ronald Reagan was the first lady, Mrs. Reagan was the poster child for the DARE program, right? It got a lot of support. And then we ended up applying for the grants through public safety, or through CJPA, which is the clearinghouse for all of the Department of Justice grants here. So we could have sustained that, I think. But when times change, needs change, right? And then every election with every governor is a different leader, right? And then the leadership changes again. So there's never been a consistent messaging, a consistent follow through, right? And that's one of our weaknesses. I'm not going to say it's a failure, but it's one of the weaknesses. And in order for us to address the needs of the community now, we need to make sure that those leaders in those programs that are actually there to do their job and bring down crime, address the high levels of drugs, high levels of, illegal prostitution, stuff like that, right? You need enforcement. But as Rep. Attal said, we relied so much on external, and we still do, but we forgot about the real message of that grant. What was the intended purpose? And so with that, it just kind of just died. And leadership in those roles are crucial, because then that is the sustainable plan, is having these leaders continue these conversations with the people that are actually meant to carry out the function of the grant so that it could bring down a negative, the negative implications, right? So my whole thing is leadership roles and the Senate that place and approve these people based on the governor's or the executive branch's submission for these leadership roles. They have a job, and their job is to really scrutinize the people that are going to be placed in these positions. Because if you don't take advantage of that, and I don't know if you guys watch a lot of it is always great. You do a great job, but no one really ever talks about what their plan is, what their vision is for this, for their goals and objectives, because every agency in the Commonwealth has a mission. And if you don't meet that mission because you put a leader there that really just wants to be there for the pomp and circumstance, it doesn't, makes no sense. You're a taxpayer. How many of you guys are working besides going to school? You all pay taxes, just like all of us here. So your input is crucial. I mean, can you imagine if the Commonwealth said, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm tired of paying taxes. I don't think the government's doing a fair share and using my taxes to its benefit, and there's a revolution of everyone not paying taxes? Right? So can you imagine that, right? History tends to repeat itself. Hopefully our community is really small. We're not asking for a revolution, but just as COVID and just as everything else happens in 100 years, the world tends to reset after a century. For some reason, it always does. But leadership is important. So at any time that the Senate now has the authority to bring in these leaders to get confirmed for top positions and cabinet positions, put in your comments. You have every right. You vote and you're a taxpayer. And there are outlets for you to provide that. You can write your comments to any of the House reps, right? And you can also write to your senators. But for me, it's really a leadership role. The leadership and the people that are placed in those high positions have a responsibility to meet the mission, because the mission never changed. It's still the same. So thank you for that question. I think it's important. As you know, there's 20 of us in here, so 20 of us have difference of opinions, right? And so how do we get one clear, cohesive message? That's always tasking for us. But as long as we can talk about it and we all have different ideas and come to one real tangible and workable idea, then we've done our job, right? At least to the best that we can. So thank you, and I'm glad you guys are here. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, floor leader. And again, good question. I like how you said taxation without representation, right? That's how America was founded. Then America was founded, and then they started implementing taxes again, right? I'd like to recognize Chairman Aldan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you guys for for being here and allowing us to to hear your thoughts and your concerns, and at the same time to let you guys understand our situation as well. When you really look at it, at the very core of this whole thing that we want to solve, it all comes down to money. You know what I mean? It all boils down to money. We all in the community, all of us wants to do great things, but whatever that great thing is, we need funding. Because without it, we could dream all kinds of dreams and things are possible, but if we don't manage the funding the way it's supposed to be managed, it will not work. And like the floor leader said, with all the institutional knowledge that our honorable BJ Atao has and with the comment that leadership, so we know all of these things, and we need good leadership, so we can take your taxes and spend it the right way. You know what I mean? And it's a very basic thing if you really look at it, right? If you live, your home is a government institution, in a micro sense. You know what I mean? Because when you work and you and your partner are contributing to the coffers to spend on whatever it is you need to spend, you know. So let's say, for example, that you bring in $100 and then you got your utility bill to pay, your car payment to pay, your insurance to pay, and all of this. But then one of your partner or whoever it might be, like, oh no, we want, I want a Prada bag, and the other one says, no, we need to pay the utility, you know. So there is in the household, when somebody wants something that is unnecessary, that's practically like almost like your government. you know they have the money, but then they spend it on something else that is not really critical to the community. There's a lot of programs that are great programs, and when we receive the budget from the executive branch, we would like, here's the money. This is the money that you're giving us to appropriate, and you say you want it for this and this and this and that. But then when we approve it and we give it to you, we find out that you didn't actually do what you said you were going to do with the funds. So therefore, a lot of the programs, the great programs, has went to the sideways. And even though there is mounting evidence to show that these programs actually benefited, but because the program wasn't considered important enough, they put that money somewhere else. And it's crazy to think that way, because like I said, in your house, what makes your house go around? It's the money that you bring in. So when the government taxes you and takes that money and it's not putting it in where you guys think it should be, prioritizing, it's technically not prioritizing. If you do not prioritize your spending bill in your house, if you don't create a budget that makes logical and reasonable sense, you will never be financially stable. Your economy in the house would be unstable. And if you're always thinking that, oh, I can go out there and get a job and it's security, no, it's not. Because as long as you're depending on somebody else to give you those funding at any moment, don't think for one moment that you are not expendable. Every single one of us is expendable. The company could be a multi-billion-dollar company, but at the end of the day, if the profit margin of that company starts to go down, guess what's going to happen to you? You will be given a thank you for your service. Here's a pink slip. Find yourself another job. So in order, in my opinion, in order to not be dependent on somebody else's input, you have to find a way to make yourself, industrious. Figure it out. Try to, we depended so much on tourism. It's our number one industry, no doubt. But do we control it? No way. There's absolutely no way you can control it. We love the Japanese market. We love the Chinese market. We love the Korean market. We love the Russian market. But what happens externally, we cannot control. But what can we do here? What can we produce, locally? And believe it or not, we have a lot of resources, in the CNMI to actually do something and, either sell it to ourselves and make it a micro economy, you know what I mean? Instead of depending on somebody else. And I'll give you a perfect example. Why in the world are we importing bananas when we have bananas all over the place? We could sell our own bananas, right? Or we could just produce it ourselves and we don't even have to buy. Or let's go ask si Tan Maria or si Manang next door. Because I'm pretty sure they're growing so much bananas that it's gonna be coming out of their ears, right? How many, when you go to the stores, you see coconut oil imported from Philippines, from Thailand, from Mexico, for God's sake. But yet, how many coconuts do we have? It's crazy. So instead of, like, like I said, on your budget, right? Instead of going to Joten and buy, $5 worth of bananas, why don't you just go to the backyard and get it? You know what I mean? And a lot of these things, if you become, you become self-sustaining and be independent on your own, you don't put yourself in a predicament that you have to depend 100% on somebody else outside. Because when you do, this is that situation you're going to be in. The Chinese market is not coming. Japanese market is not coming. The Korean market is not coming. And then all we're going to depend on is Uncle Sam. That's like saying that, oh, no, I'm going to, keep depending on mom and dad and grandma and grandpa. Sooner or later, mom and dad, grandma and grandpa are going to be like, you know what? We got issues. I sent you to college. You got your education. But yet you're still living under my roof. At what point are we going to, get our heads straight, and unbury it from the sand and be industrious, be independent, be a leader that actually knows how to manage funding. There's a lot of things we want. But at the end of the day, can we afford it? And let's not assume that, like the government always gives a budget proposal, because we assume that this coming next year, we're going to make $114 million. We assume. So we're going to go ahead and spend $114 million. And then next thing you know, when next year comes, we're short. How much are we short? Now we're on a deficit. Okay, bust out the credit card. You know what I mean? And when they bust out that credit card, guess what? That's your future that you have to pay for. Oh, let's get a loan. Guess what? That's your future that you have to pay for. So at the end of the day, when you see a government that is running amok and going a crazy spending spree on things that is not needed, you're going to be in a world of hurt. If you think we're bad now, when you inherit a debt that is unpayable in your lifetime, you're going to be waking up one day and be like, how in the world did we get into this situation? So you learn how to manage your credit card. You know what I mean? Learn how to manage your finance and don't be so independent of somebody else, because you will be in a world of hurt. I guarantee you that. So, when it comes down to it, just if your government starts acting crazy with your money and your future, you need to get involved, and you need to get involved fast. Don't wait for your turn to come around, because it's going to put you in a world of hurt. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Aldan. I was just going to say, how are we on time? Because I noticed some of the students have been had to leave. What are you guys? Oh, okay. So again, very good questions. I know it's a lot of open-ended answers, but we're trying to share as much as we can with the limited time that we have. But on behalf of the House of Representatives, thank you. And just know that this is your house too as well. Anytime our doors are open, the sessions are open. And yeah, feel free to come by. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Come again, please. All right. Yes. Yes, we can have them all gather here. Or...